And there we go.
Okay.
Just to let everybody know that Deb's under the weather, and so I'm stepping in for her tonight. And normally Peter and Tom, I am the club's secretary. I was president last year, and but we have here tonight four of our other members besides me, and that's about half of our regular membership, and then we have a whole bunch of people associated as well. So we have like 12 regular members, and then we have about 20 others that associate with us that are members of other Rotary clubs. But we have a position a membership thing called associate member, and they participate with us regularly, and they don't jump from their own clubs that way. So
I see. Okay.
so anyway.
Well, I'm glad to see Tom Heffron is on tonight. He's the man who designed my book, and I think did a really nice job of it. Very pleased.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to work on the book.
We're gonna take a couple of little household items here first, and then I'll introduce you there, Peter, okay? So, any happy bucks or anything to share, anybody? Well, everybody's quiet. Rory, go ahead.
I say I'll put it in 5 that I made it home safely. Starting to mend now.
That's great. Okay.
I
Rory.
threw my back. For those who don't know, I threw my back out on the way up to the Mississippi. So it was another 3 days of riding in pain.
You didn't throw
Wow.
you didn't throw it when we were working on my tire, did you?
That didn't help.
Yeah.
I've thrown my back out about 3 times on trips, and luckily I had some Vicodin with me, and I got home on that. But my back has cured itself the last few years, and my upper back bothers me now, and my lower back doesn't go out anymore. So I'm really improving.
Well, I'm happy we had a great ride. We really did. Something like 2,300 miles for me in the whole ride. And 200 miles in, I lost a tire, the back rear tire. Now I know how that feels too. I know this. My motorcycle, the one I was riding, is a 2012, and it has a tire pressure monitoring system. And for that era, they stopped working about 2 years before that. So, but now I know it's a.
I'm sorry, what bike was it?
Oh, it's a 2012 Goldwing.
Oh, okay.
Brand new one, and I've got 3 more parts coming back from the painter. The new one's still sitting in the garage with 64 miles on it, waiting for the rest of the parts, but it's getting close. I have it half rebuilt right now with all the parts going back on. And by this time tomorrow, I should have it all up and running. So
That's a big bike.
I'll throw up for that too. So I'll get that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Nothing else to share?
I just want to know, Rory, did you take the high speed over to Muskegon from Milwaukee?
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't going to put up with 4 hours over to Ludington and they have to drive another 2 hours south.
Yeah, going on the Badger, yeah.
I mean, I come in on the high speed in 5 minutes from the house.
Yeah. Yeah, I've taken that a couple times. It's a nice ride.
The
Chicago, if you don't take the ferry, I've gone through Chicago a few times to Michigan, and that's not a really pleasurable motorcycle ride.
No, and that high speed, if you're going up the eastern side of Michigan, that high speed ferry really gets you over there quicker than trying to drive around Chicago. I hate that.
About 2.5 hours from here.
It's not bad.
Provided the waves are under 6 foot. At 6 foot, they don't go out anymore.
We came back and through it came down to 2 of us in the end for the last part of the ride, and the gentleman that was with me, he had not experienced Paradise, the Trail of the Trees, their tunnel of trees, I guess
Tunnel
it
of
is.
trees.
Yeah, or Hell, Michigan. So I took him we stopped in Paradise late at night, and then the next day took him from nearby there We did the falls and we did the paradise there, you know. And then the next day took him down through the tunnel trees and all the way to Hell, Michigan before we were done. So running him from paradise to hell.
Great name for a town. It really brings in the and more settlers and
Hell, Michigan is it's two buildings actually. One's a bar and the other one is a post office and knickknack seller thing. So how they maintain that post office, I don't know, but it's just that's it for Hell, Michigan. Everybody else outside of those two buildings live in Pinckney. Anyway, well, nothing further from the others. I'm going to introduce you tonight to Peter. Peter, I'm going to let him continue the introductions because Peter came to us from our former member Sarah Schilke. Sarah is one of them that's going to be watching later, Peter. And do you know? I don't know if you know her personally or not, but Sarah is an exec in the motor world. Okay, and anyway, but she had suggested Peter as a writer, or because she's known Peter as a writer for the cycle world. But he's got a unique experience and a new book coming out at the end of this week. And it's nice to hear Peter talk about this book. And with that, Peter, I'm going to let you continue your introduction, if you would, please.
Okay, well, I've never met Sarah personally, but I've seen her on websites and seen her interviewed, and I know she's very active in the motorcycle world. And so she's doing the public relations for the book and the advertising, and she's done a good job of that. So, but the book it's a little outside the range of the normal motorcycle podcast in that I worked for Road and Track and Cycle World magazine for about 40 some years. And, but during the 80s, my wife, Barb, and I lived in California when I worked for both magazines. And another interest of mine has always been old airplanes in general and aviation. And while we lived in California, my wife, Barb, and I both learned how to fly. And it's always been a dream of mine to get in an old airplane and fly, as I said in the book, low and slow, and fly around the US. And so Barb and I managed to save up some vacation time for a couple of years and got 6 weeks of accumulated vacation and took off with this 1945 Piper Cub from Corona, California. And we flew across the Southwest and the South, went to see my dad in Florida. And then we went up the East Coast to as far as Kitty Hawk. I always wanted to see Kill Devil Hills and Kitty Hawk, where the Wright brothers flew. And then we flew back through Virginia and up into Pennsylvania and went to the 50th anniversary of the Piper Cub fly-in, and then back to Wisconsin to see our old friends. We're both from Wisconsin originally, and this is where we live now. We spent 10 years in California and then moved back here to have a little more space for a workshop and some country roads to ride on, and mostly to get out of traffic. And but we've been back here now for 30 some years, and we don't have the airplane anymore. We had it for a number of years, and we found out it's in Australia now. But I thought that flying the airplane around the country it was kind of like a motorcycle trip. We couldn't carry much luggage. We had 20 pounds of allowable luggage weight in the plane, which is less than we're used to putting in a saddlebag. And so we really just had a slight change of clothes and some cash with us. And we had picked up a very lightweight pup tent too, if we needed to camp under the wing. And it was a very hot summer, so we tended to get a motel about 3 o'clock in the afternoon when we were really worn out from the heat and the noise and flying. But it was sort of like a motorcycle trip in a way, except we were flying at about 1,000 feet above the ground. And we managed to make about 300 miles a day. And we tried to avoid the big cities and high traffic areas and landed in small towns and small airports and grass strips and that kind of thing. So it was, I guess it was a little bit like a back road motorcycle trip, but it was just always something I've wanted to do.
do the airports have, I mean, do you have a map? Like I know when, when you go on a motorcycle trip, at least you've got some idea where you're going to go to a town or something for camping or for a motel, but do you know where their airports are?
Yeah, the FAA has a very good set of charts for various sections of the country, and they've got all the information you need for flying, all the restrictions, like if you're over a military zone or coming into an airport traffic pattern for a larger airport. And so you navigate using those charts. And the Piper Cub was such an old airplane, it doesn't even have any electrical system except for the ignition system. So we had no navigation gear and just a compass, which was broken part of the time for the trip. And so we were really navigating by the 3 R's, which are roads, rivers, and railroads. And we also carried a Rand McNally road atlas and state maps with us, so we could see what the towns looked like and what the roads looked like. And we used both kinds of charts for flying. But we tended to stay near highways that we could identify, so we knew where we were going. We went a long way across the Southwest, pretty much following I-10. We weren't right over the highway usually, but we had it off to our right or left in the distance, so we knew where we were. And that helped a lot, just using the big roads. And then, of course, when you get to the Gulf Coast and Florida, as I wrote in the book, and we visited my dad in Boca Raton, Florida, and when you take off to fly up the coast, it's pretty hard to get lost. I said, as long as I can remember that I'm dyslexic, I'm okay. I keep the ocean on my right, and land on my left, and we didn't get lost. So that was our navigation, and we made it all the way to Florida without a compass. Our compass broke just as we were leaving the airport in California, and we weren't able to find one all the way. But we didn't really need it very badly. As I mentioned in the book, when you're in the West, roads and railroads all have to go somewhere important, or they wouldn't be there. There's a lot of empty space, and so if you get near an interstate or a railroad, it's probably going to take you somewhere to civilization. But we generally knew where we were. We were only traveling about 65 miles an hour, and we're flying pretty low, so we could see the towns and identify them, and see where the highways split off and that kind of thing. So navigation was actually fairly easy. We only got lost, I think, once or twice briefly, where we had some doubt about where we were.
Who's the better navigator, you or your wife?
Oh, she is by far. She's very exact. She's a pilot also. We both learned to fly in California, and she started taking lessons right after I got my pilot's license. And we both went to ground school together in California. And Barb originally just wanted to learn about navigation and radio work and that kind of thing so she could help fly. And then she got very interested in flying and started taking lessons right after I did. And so we were both pilots. So she was able to take over the controls while I looked at charts and vice versa. And she was also able to fly the plane while I wrote notes. Part of the day I would be writing down what we were seeing or recording it on a small pocket tape recorder so I could remember at the end of the day where we were and what we were flying over. But she's a good navigator, so we're a good team together. She's very exact and wrote everything down. She also has good handwriting, so she could write things down on the chart, like what time we added fuel and so on, and you could actually read it. Where if I wrote it down, it would be hard to decipher.
Can you update me again on when you did this trip and what did you deal with weather-wise as you flew across the country?
We did it in the summer of 1987, and we flew in the middle of the summer and got home in August, and the weather was very hot that year. We had planned to camp quite a bit more. We had a tent and just a very lightweight blanket, but it was an extremely hot summer all the way through the Southwest and the South. And the weather was usually pretty good. We didn't have too much trouble in early mornings, but we discovered in the West and also in the South, things really boil up about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. In the West, you don't get rainstorms, but you get dust devils and gusts of wind coming up, and it gets kind of unpleasant to fly. And in the deep South, we discovered in the middle of the summer this phenomenon we called the 3 o'clock thunderstorm. About 2:30, you start to see these clouds build up, and pretty soon they're just boiling up and you're seeing lightning, and it's time to get on the ground and tie the airplane down. And we did that a number of times. And a couple of times we were just a little late getting in, and it wasn't much fun. But mostly our weather was pretty good, but just hot. So as on a motorcycle trip, if it's hot weather, you're really ready at the end of the day for an air-conditioned restaurant, an air-conditioned motel, and a cold drink. That sounds more attractive than getting your tent out and camping in the heat. So I think we only camped a couple of times on the trip, and I think more just to say we did it. One time we had to. There was no alternative, but usually we stayed at the cheapest possible motel in whatever small town was nearby.
I'm curious, Peter, how did you pick? I mean, when you come into a small town, you come into an airport, getting from the airport into town, how did you work that?
That was a major problem on the trip, and a good question. A lot of airports are close enough, but quite a number of them are 1 or 2 miles from town, so it's a pretty good walk. And we got lucky a number of places. People would be curious about the airplane and come up to talk to us because it's an antique airplane. And then they would realize that we were on foot, and they would offer to drive us into town and find a motel and this kind of thing. And once in a while we had to hitchhike. And a few times we just ended up walking. We couldn't get a ride. I think, people are on their way home from work, and they're a little suspicious of 2 people in their 30s, late 30s, who are trying to hitchhike and aren't very well dressed. And I guess we look like Bonnie and Clyde or something. And, so they weren't, a few times we had trouble getting a ride. But generally there were sympathetic people at the airport. And for some reason we had especially good luck in Texas. Every place we landed, people would come up and look at the airplane and say, "You two must be hungry," or "You two must be tired out and hot. We'll drive you in and find a motel and take you to dinner," and that kind of thing. So we were knocked out by the hospitality of people all over the trip, all over the country. So,
Peter, did it seem that a more rural setting, the people are more forthcoming and forgiving, whereas in a more tighter, larger population, were people a little more guarded in their help or offering help?
Not necessarily. I think airports are probably the defining factor. People who like airplanes and fly understand what's going on, whether you're in a rural area or a big city. And we had to land at a couple of big cities, but we also had very good luck with people at the larger airports coming over to look at the airplane and get talking to us. And I think occasionally people from the smaller towns and smaller airports were a little, they didn't really understand what we were doing, and they were a little more puzzled by what kind of trip we were doing and why we landed. And it's kind of once in a while, just a few times in the trip, we'd tell people what we're doing, and they'd hesitate and say, "Well, why the hell are you doing that?" It doesn't sound like much fun. So I don't know. I think it's like motorcycling. If you go to a place where a lot of motorcyclists hang out, you're going to meet other people who understand what you're doing, and tend to concentrate those people.
Did you experience any difficulty with your airplane itself and having any mechanical needs as you flew across the country?
We did twice. We had right over Wichita. We were flying over the south end of Wichita. We dropped a cylinder on the plane and had to quickly find a place to land. And we landed at an airport south of Wichita, and just as we touched down, the cylinder kicked in again. And we took it into a flight center, and some very nice guys who were working on another airplane came over and immediately helped us out and worked on the airplane and did some diagnostic work. And they couldn't really find anything wrong. They said you probably had a stuck valve or some lead on the valve or a deposit that blew off. And so we had to decide whether to do further investigation or keep flying. And we were on our way home. We just had about 4 or 5 days to get home. And so we decided to keep flying. And we didn't have any more trouble till we were in California. And we're, of all places, we're flying right over near Banning Pass. We're flying right over a wind farm outside of just near the border, near Palm Springs. And the cylinder cut out again. And we turned around to get down on lower elevation and find a place to land. And then the engine cut back in. So that was really it. It started working again. But when we got home, we didn't really trust the engine anymore. So it was time to restore the airplane anyway. It was a little beat up when we got it. And we had a really good guy named Russ Harmuth up in Northern California restore the airplane. And he rebuilt the engine. And that was the end of all our engine trouble. After that, it ran beautifully. So,
Did you ever figure out exactly what it was that was making it kick out, or just?
no, we don't. We still don't know. He didn't find anything definite about the engine. We did find out that the plane was too heavy. Whoever had covered it years ago, recovered it with fabric, had used very heavy fabric and put way too much paint on. They used automotive enamel. And so the guy who restored the airplane said your airplane is about 50 pounds overweight because of the paint and the fabric that were on it.
Wow.
So after he did the restoration, it was much nicer to fly and climb better and a little more responsive. But it was pretty good on most of the trip. But the only time we really had trouble was in the mountains when we had real heat. The air gets thin. You don't have much lift and you don't have much horsepower. So it got a little bit stressful getting through the mountain passes. But other than that, I wrote about it in the book. I said it's amazing for an airplane that old to fly 7,000 miles around the United States and have two small things go wrong. Where it stops, goes on, loses a cylinder for a minute, and then it cuts back in. I said, I can't think of a 1945 car or motorcycle that I would want to take from California to Florida and up the East Coast and back and expect quite that much reliability out of it.
Didn't you have a screw go missing on a stabilizer or an elevator?
No, we didn't have that. We landed in Texas, right near El Paso, and the throttle cable was very stiff. It had been bothering me. You had to really push it hard. And I mentioned to a mechanic at the airport that we should probably lube the throttle cable. And that's not, I'm not a trained aircraft mechanic, so that's not something I'm supposed to be working on. And so he dropped us off at a motel and said he would work on it and lubricate the cable. And all we had to do was write a check and drop it off in the office mail slot in the morning when we left. So we came early in the morning and dropped the check off, and then we went to start the airplane, and I realized something wasn't right with the throttle linkage, and the mechanic had left a clamp off. He left it loose, and the cable fell right out of its clamp, and he also hadn't put safety wire back on, and somebody had done a really sloppy job on it and just gone home, and so I was not happy about that, and I fixed it myself using a flashlight and a pair of pliers. And we had to decide whether to wait for a couple hours for the airport office to open so we could talk to them, or take off early while the air was cool. And we decided to just get in the plane and take off, because we had to get over the last big mountain pass that morning. So we'd gotten up in the dark to make sure we had cool air to get off as early as possible. So that's the only thing that went wrong really on the airplane mechanically, where I had to get tools out, fix something.
Actually, I apologize. I think I'm confusing that with an incident in the book Flight of Passage by Ringer Buck.
Oh, yeah.
They had stabilizer trouble.
Yeah. That's a great book and very interesting. And of course, he was only, 15 years old when he did it?
17, and his brother was 14 or something.
Yeah, I know. or vice versa. I can't remember. One of them was very young, and it was quite a feat for two kids, two teenagers, to cross the country in a Cub.
My copy of the book is sitting right next to the copy of Landings that I got the other day.
Uh-huh. Well, you
You're,
got your book. Good.
I reread Flight of Passage when I was making preparations for doing the layout of yours. I just was got a very plain mode.
Yeah. Rinker Buck also wrote a very interesting book about going down the Mississippi on a raft.
Yep.
Yeah, he started on the Ohio River, but he essentially built. You've probably read that. He built a
I haven't read that one.
air type raft that somebody would have used to move his family and farm gear and so on. And so he took that down the Mississippi, which was another thing I've always thought of doing. I thought it would be fun to take a canoe from we're on a creek in Wisconsin that connects to a couple of rivers and goes into the Mississippi. And I thought, Barb and I have thought a couple of times we could put a canoe in our front yard and go to New Orleans. But when you see the lower Mississippi and some of the dams and turbines and so on and currents, it's probably not such a good idea.
Oh my.
hey, I walked through it and just a couple days ago, I walked right across it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Where were you?
What's that?
Where were you? Where did you walk across the Mississippi?
We were right at the source in Lake Itasca.
Itasca.
Yeah. Lake Itasca, right there. And there's just a little landing underneath the footbridge that you can roll your jeans up and wade right across. So I think the deep spot was a foot and a half.
You probably don't want to try that at St. Louis or somewhere.
Well, I grew up right next to Lock and Dam number 12 in Bellevue, Iowa. So you don't try it there either.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah. Did you take Highway 35 up the Mississippi on the Wisconsin side, or did you go up the Minnesota?
We did the Great River Road all the way up in the Iowa side, and we up through Minnesota, and then of course about halfway up, it's all Minnesota, following the Great River Road. Back about, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, we did a ride from the same area. We went up from on the Iowa side all the way up to McGregor and crossed over Prairie du Chien and came back down.
Yeah, I've taken area.
It's so beautiful on both sides of that river. Just so beautiful.
Yeah, there's some really high roads and bluffs on the Iowa side, and there's some little town that's got a famous bar way up on a hill that always had a lot of motorcycles there when we stop in. And I can't remember the name of it, but it's got you can see for miles from there. You can see all the way down the river, and it's quite a beautiful spot. The Wisconsin side of the river going up to the Twin Cities it's a smaller road. Highway 35 is not as fast, but it's charming. And I spent a summer along that stretch of the river from Bay City down to La Crosse, working on a railroad section. We were shoveling gravel in front of a tamping machine for the whole distance. So I put in a kind of a rugged summer there, but I got to see a lot of the river and a lot of the little trestles and bridges. I fell off a trestle shoveling. I didn't realize I was on a bridge and took a step backwards and landed in the water on my back. And it was an exciting summer, but it's a nice road.
35 is a great road. I went to college in La Crosse.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm very familiar with that area and love to go up there.
Well, I grew up not too far from La Crosse. I grew up in Elroy, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and people in Elroy either went to Madison or La Crosse to do any of their big shopping. You know, that's where the big stores were. Yeah, and so I had about half my friends in high school went to La Crosse, and some went to Madison to university, and but the La Crosse was I worked on a section crew on the railroad with a bunch of fraternity guys from La Crosse one summer, and
back when I was in the military, I spent a couple of short tours in Fort Mickey Mouse or Fort McCoy.
McCoy, yeah, Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse. You'll be if in the book, Barb's dad was in World War II, was stationed at that time it was Camp McCoy, and he was training for the ski invasion of Norway that never came off. They decided not to do it, canceled it. But while he was ski training at Camp McCoy, he met Barb's mother. They met on a date and fell in love and decided to get married. And so that's Camp McCoy is and that's not far from where I grew up in Elroy. It's just just north of there. So.
Well, I was the last time I was there was when this is going back 40 years. So it was back when they brought in the Cuban refugees.
Oh, really? Okay.
They processed them through Fort McCoy. It was Fort McCoy at the time. It's Camp McCoy now again. But they processed them through there. And we built a by-the-book POW camp without the concertina wire on the top of the big fences. Okay. But that was to process through because there was a mixture of criminals and actually political people. And they were there for 1 week and they put up the concertina wire because they had some bad people in there as well. But
yeah,
and I got the Humanitarian Service Award for building a POW camp.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, Castro was able to get rid of a strange mixture of people, political prisoners, and then just ordinary murderers and thieves. And a friend who was a public defender in Madison, and he said it took about 2 years for all of the real criminals to show up again and end up in one of our prisons. And but he said, of course, a lot of people were just glad to get out of there. They were in prison for trying to escape from Cuba, and which was a no-no. So strange times, strange mixture of people. Were you in the National Guard?
I was well at the time I was finishing out my undergrad and graduate school at the University of Iowa, but I was active duty shortly after that. And so I did the summer training while I was part of a reserve officer or a reserve unit down in Muscatine, Iowa.
I see. Where did you go to basic training?
My original officer stuff, basic officer, was at Fort over in Washington, Fort Lewis.
Oh, okay.
And then I branched. I was originally combat engineer, and I branched transferred into the Ordnance Corps and finished out doing training over at Aberdeen Proving Grounds.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a lot of years ago.
Yeah, well, I was in the Army even longer ago than that. So.
Yep, I read that.
Yeah.
So,
long time.
Very cool.
Yeah. I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and then I got sent to infantry school at Fort Polk, Louisiana. And on the airplane trip, we went right near Fort Polk, but I was not tempted to go back and look around. And I decided we should just fly on to New Orleans and have a hurricane or something.
They really tried hard to get me to be an infantry officer. But
if you grew up in Wisconsin and then were sent down to Fort Polk, I can imagine that you don't have a lot of fond memories of that.
Well, I wrote in the book that when we were told we got orders to go to Fort Polk, everybody said, "Oh, you're going to hate it down there. It's tiger land, and it's just like Vietnam. It's all swamps and terrible mosquitoes and heat and humidity." And I went down there in the summer after almost freezing to death at Fort Campbell, Kentucky in the winter. We were sent down there, and actually I found that it was not much worse than Wisconsin in the summer. There was not as many mosquitoes, about the same humidity, and maybe a couple of degrees hotter. But part of the camp was actually in a fairly pleasant pine tree hilly area. It looked like a Boy Scout camp I went to in northern Wisconsin. So it was, I didn't mind it that much. It wasn't as bad as I thought. We did some hiking through swamps at night and compass courses at night in swamps, and we saw cottonmouth snakes and this kind of thing. But most of it was just not much worse. The Midwest gets pretty hot in the summer, as you know, and I couldn't tell much difference, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, we had some good heat and humidity last week.
Oh boy, it's terrible here now. It's I usually go riding about 3 times a week with a couple of friends, and we've cut it back to once or twice a week now, because a lot of days we plan a ride and it's just so hot you walk outside and say, no, I don't think so. It's just too humid. So
What do you ride, Peter?
my main bike right now is a Triumph Bonneville. It's a modern, it's a T120 1200 Bonneville, water cooled version that looks like an old Bonneville but isn't, and doesn't break down. And then I've also got a Royal Enfield Himalayan that I ride a lot. It's a 411. It's a real nice back road bike for our farm roads around here, and or just running errands. It's got good saddlebags on it. And then last fall, I bought back my old BMW R100 RS. It's a 1984 RS, and I sold it to a good friend of mine about 16 or 18 years ago, and he rode it quite a bit. But he's got a big collection of motorcycles, and he wasn't riding it much anymore, and it was just gathering dust. And so he was nice enough to sell it back to me last fall, and I made it my winter project to put in wheel bearings and steering head bearings and clean it up and get the mud wasp nests out of it, and the mouse nests out of the air cleaner and that kind of thing from the barn exposure. But I've been riding that. I'll probably ride that a little more in the fall when it cools off. I don't really need much weather protection right now from cold air. So, but it's a bike that Barb and I rode to the West Coast and back twice during the 90s, and we also did a trip through the Ozarks with it a long time ago. So we've got a lot of good memories and photographs in our photo albums of that motorcycle in various nice places that we rode. So it was kind of nice to get it back.
So how long did you keep your plane after your trip?
We kept it probably about 3 years. No, we kept it for almost 5 years. We had it restored after we got back in 1987, and we kept it for 3 more years in California. We moved back to Wisconsin in 1990, and then I flew the plane back. Barb took a commercial flight back because she had to take our 2 cats, bring our cats along and bring them in cat carriers. And so a friend of mine, Pat Donnelly, an old college friend, also had just gotten his pilot's license, and he thought it'd be a big adventure to come out to California and help me fly the Cub back to Wisconsin. So the 2 of us flew that back. And then we had it here for about 3 years, and we had it in a hangar nearby, not far from our house, and it's about 11 miles away. And it was getting kind of not used much in the winter. We didn't have a heated hangar, and it was a small airport with a grass strip that wasn't always able to get it plowed out after a snowstorm. And so finally we had bats in the hangar that were defecating, shall we say, on the wings, and I was covering the airplane up with plastic sheets. And I decided we'd probably be way ahead if we had sold this to somebody with a nice heated hangar and just started renting an airplane that was, kept kept dry and cleaned by somebody else in a nice hangar. So that's what we sold it to a man in Ripon, Wisconsin, and we've since found out the airplane ended up in Australia. So that's where it is now. I don't know where in Australia, but after that we rented. I like to fly Citabrias, which are an aerobatic plane. I like to have a plane that can do the occasional loop and spin and this kind of thing. And so we rented those for quite a while. But neither of us is flying anymore. I've had a few medical issues, and I don't know that I should be flying anymore. I'm 77 years old, and once in a while I can't find my glasses, and or I forget where I put my billfold, and it's probably not the best state of mind to be flying an airplane in a busy area. So I think it's better left to somebody just a little younger now.
Peter, remind me again, what's the title of the book that you're coming out with on Friday?
It's called Landings in America. And the subhead is Two People, One Summer, and a Piper Cub. And it says a flying memoir, which is, I must say it's an idea that I stole from Flight of Passage, because I wanted to make it clear on the cover that this was not a current travel log that we had on a trip we had just done. I discussed this with Tom as well, and Lee Clancher, the publisher. We're trying to do something on the cover to let people know that this was not a trip we had just taken, that we're looking back in time at a trip we took in the past. So
I would really like to. I want to get a copy of it, because I enjoyed all your articles in Cycle World. I was a annual subscriber for decades, and I would really enjoy reading this, I'm sure.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I would buy a copy, and then I think you should probably buy a copy for everybody you know for Christmas as well.
I see it's available on Amazon in about a week's time, huh?
Yeah, Amazon announced at first, I believe, that it was coming out, and they had a release date of August 12th, and then for some reason, I don't know, there was a shipping problem or what, they added 2 weeks to that. So a number of friends of mine were expecting it to come on the 12th, and emailed me and asked what had happened. And a couple of them just got them today. 2 people who had ordered them on Amazon had them show up today. So apparently they're finally sending them out. But I think the official release date is next Monday.
This is my copy that I got. I ordered this through Octane Press, and I got this last Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, Octane Press was probably the best place to buy it. Yeah, they had it. There we go. Yeah,
Octane.com.
ago, they started shipping. Actually, they started shipping out on August 12th, which is what Amazon said it was going to do.
Oh, wow.
And so a number of friends of mine who ordered it through Octane have gotten their books already and had them for a week at this point, or a few days.
It shows up right at the top of their website. I'm sharing it right now.
Yeah.
There we go. Mm-hmm. Yep. Explore America.
And it's $5 less than it cost on Amazon.
Amazon, yeah.
Very cool.
I think Lee Clancher at Octane Press said that we do a little, that said Amazon takes a slightly larger cut than the publisher does. So anyway, I didn't know that. I didn't know it was coming out on Amazon, and all of a sudden a friend of mine in Elkhart Lake emailed me and said, "Here's your book on Amazon with a complete review of the book," and so on. I said, "Oh, I had no idea it was coming out." And we had planned to have it come out August 12th. This is way back last winter. And so it caught me by surprise that it was listed, being pre-sold, but I was glad to see it turn up.
I would like to add that I've been a Peter Egan fan since about 89 or 90, and I've pretty much read everything he's written. And having worked on the book, obviously I'm biased in the sense that anything he's written I love, and the chance to work on the book just made it that much more rewarding for me. But if you like anything that you've read in Cycle World or Road and Track, you'll love this book. It's all
good.
It's all of one piece, so to speak.
Well, thank you, Tom. It's a little different from my other writing. There are more flashbacks and retrospective stuff, and it's a little more autobiographical. But
Yep.
I hope I haven't run on too long on some of these things, and that it all works out. So
I will end up buying it on Amazon because it's actually a few pennies less on Amazon when the shipping's included, and I'm Prime member, so I get the shipping for free. So
okay.
Yep.
Well, if it doesn't, I'll send you the Octane Press card. I've got a QR on there. You could just order it. So.
I,
Very
I have
cool.
I have another question. What I did, I laid out the text into a format that's turns out to be a book. And I kept thinking that it's not terribly clear how it all came together, but how much time, Peter, did you spend making notes, transcribing notes, and then maybe trying to recall things through memory to come up with a manuscript?
Well, on the trip, I had planned to write a book about the trip when we did the trip. So I took a lot of notes, and I carried a pocket tape recorder. And so I had a small pocket tape recorder in my shirt all day long when we were flying. And I would, when we'd fly over a particular landform or something that struck me about what we were seeing, I would record it. And occasionally I would also write notes while we were flying when Barb was flying, but usually I would just record something. And then when we would stop at night and go to a motel, I would usually spend an hour or two in the motel in the evening transcribing my notes and writing them out in a notebook from the tape recorder. And then when we got back to California, I took those notes and amplified them because they were shorthand as well, just so I would remember where we were, and wrote it out more in a long form, a readable form. And so by the time I got that done, I had about 110 pages of typed notes, double-spaced typed pages of notes on the trip. And I also kept all of the Time magazines that we got while we were gone. So I would know what was going on, remember what was going on that week in the world. And I also mailed home a lot of brochures and charts and hotel brochures and little booklets I picked up and so on. And so when we got back to California, I was working for the two magazines, Road and Track and Cycle World. And I had a pretty heavy work schedule. I had a column due each month for both magazines, and also a feature story every month in most months for both. And so I decided I just couldn't take another day of the week to sit in front of a computer and write, or at a typewriter. And I needed Sunday off so I could take a motorcycle ride or do something other than work. And so I put the project off, but all these years, 30 some years, I've been carrying I've got it right here. It's a big plastic box with a handle on it that had all of the notes and photographs and charts, kept all of the charts from the trip. And Barb and I had worked together on them and made magic marker lines on the charts exactly where we went and when we landed. And so I had all of those. So I had a lot of stuff to work with. And then another very helpful thing in modern times is to have Google Earth, because I could write about it, and then I could look at Google Earth and see what the airport looks like now, and if the runways are still the same, and make sure that I had the right number on the runway, which I had written down, but sometimes you want to check and make sure that's correct, so you don't get letters from somebody who lives there saying there is no such runway. And so I spent a lot of time looking things like that up. And also, but by the time I did this book, it was much more of a retrospective than the original book was probably just going to be a day-to-day travel log. And doing it now, I'm looking back at the era and putting a little more autobiographical work into it. And so I had a lot more time to read. For instance, when we were flying over Virginia in that area, we flew over a lot of Civil War battlefields. And I had time to read or reread a number of like Shelby Foote books on the various battles, Gettysburg and the Wilderness and so on. So doing it later actually allowed me to do a lot more research on where we were and what was going on. And I probably added a bit to the length of the book, but also to what I was able to put into it.
Do you think, or let me start again, did your note taking in '87, was that any different from, say, creating the story for Dateline Missoula, which was your first story in Cycle World?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Dateline Missoula, did you also make notes during the trip, or was that all from memory on the return?
Yeah, I took some notes on. Although at the time I wasn't planning to write a story. I hadn't done a motorcycle story yet for a magazine, and I just had a novel that I wrote rejected about the third time. And a friend of mine, Howard Sprengel, who was a Honda mechanic, said, I told him my novel had been rejected. And he said, why don't you write about something you're interested in? And he said, instead of fictitious situations, why don't you, he said, you're crazy about motorcycling and cars. Why don't you write about that? And so I said, that's a good idea. And we had just had this adventure with the motorcycle breakdown in Montana and taking the rest of the trip by bus and train. And I thought I could do a story on that. And we hadn't done it. It hadn't been very long since we'd done the trip. We'd just come back from it. And so it was much easier to remember than trying to do it years later.
Yeah.
Fresh in my mind where we had gone and what happened. And interestingly enough, I just got an email this week from a guy we ran into on that trip. I wrote about him, and he was riding a Honda 550 through the Badlands, and we caught up with him, and he camped with us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
remember you mentioned like he's brushing his teeth, and he goes up and hits the starter button, and where you are spending minutes kicking over the Norton, and he just kind of nonchalantly hits the starter button.
Yeah, it was quite a moment. I was all out of breath and getting all heated up and tired out trying to kickstart the Norton. I didn't realize it had a sticking valve, and he just got out of his tent and walked over and hit the starter button on his Honda 550 while he was brushing his teeth. And I said, maybe I should get one of those. And
Yeah.
but
so he just contacted you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He's actually going to stop by in a few weeks on a motorcycle trip.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now I came in a little bit late at the introduction. Where are you living now in Wisconsin?
We live near a town called Stoughton, Wisconsin.
Okay.
But we live out in the country about 6 miles south of there. So we're about 25 miles south of Madison.
Okay.
About halfway between Madison and Janesville out in the country. And there's a little village nearby called Cooksville. That's the nearest settlement. That's about 2 miles away. But yeah, so we're in southern Wisconsin.
Yeah, I went to high school in Kenosha.
Okay.
So, and then went in the Marine Corps and then went back to, I went to a year and a half in Madison after I got out of the Corps, and then transferred up to La Crosse and finished in La Crosse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm familiar with that whole area.
Yeah. I've been over to Kenosha a number of times. Went to motorcycle shops over there, and not too far away from us, just a little bit to the southwest.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I live on Highway 35 in Hudson, Wisconsin, right across the river from St. Paul. And I have to say that a lot of Peter Egan's writing is responsible for motorcycle tourism in southwestern Wisconsin. And in fact, Peter, you could probably credit yourself with upping the sales of Limburger and onion sandwiches at Pumple's Old Town Tavern.
Yeah. Limburger and onion sandwiches with Braunschweiger are not for everyone.
That's literally become pilgrimages for people more than myself.
Well, that's nice to hear, because I can't get Barb to even taste a Limburger sandwich.
The best caramel rolls and chocolate milks in Vesby, Wisconsin.
Yeah, there we go. In Westby?
Westby, yeah.
Oh yeah, I've
been there a number of times. And you got to go to Fenimore to buy squeaky cheese.
Yeah, I grew up not far from Westby. We've actually played them in football, and They were pretty good too. They were not easy to beat. But and in fact, I don't know if we ever beat them. But yeah, that's all my hometown area. But I think there's just one cheese factory in Wisconsin left making Limburger. In fact, it may be the only one in the world for all I know. But
it's in Monroe.
yeah, it's just it's south in
Chalet Cheese Cooperative or something.
I think that's right. I think I read that. Yeah.
It's the only place that makes Limburger.
But Barb noted the last time I had a Limburger and Braunschweiger and onion sandwich that the woman who made the sandwich behind the bar took a big jar out of the refrigerator, and the Limburger was in another jar inside that jar, and it was like she was taking, nuclear isotope.
I remember that. I every couple of years I look for that column where you say it's in a jar. Inside the jar is a plastic bag, and then inside the plastic bag is wrapped in foil.
Yeah,
you liken it to plutonium or something.
Yeah, people are very careful with it, because I think if you put Limburger in your loose in your refrigerator, you can end up with a lot of other things that have a slight Limburger taste or smell. But anyway, yeah, Pumples.
Just about everything in the refrigerator.
Pumples is a wonderful bar. I still ride there. That's only 25 miles west of here on very nice roads. So that's a very common stopping point with my friends and with me when we're on a motorcycle ride. We go over there. You can sit out on the front porch if the weather's good and eat outside. And it's a very old bar. They've got really nice murals, about 100-year-old murals on the wall. And so it's a big stopping point. There are very often a lot of motorcycles parked out in front of that bar when I go by.
I've gone down to Davenport, Iowa for the races over Labor Day, and it would always be go to Davenport, work our way over to Galena, and then go up and meander through New Glarus and Dodgeville and work our way back up north. That's
a nice trip.
Great country.
Yeah, I like that route myself. I've done it a number of times. Pretty areas.
I can tell you a lot of places to go all the way from there to where you live.
To go wrong in the driftless area in western Wisconsin and parts of northern Illinois and down to Galena and up into Minnesota as well. Actually, both sides of the Mississippi are pretty nice. Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin. But I think people don't realize how good the riding is around. We had a bunch of friends from California come out and visit, and they were amazed that they thought they were going to be riding through flat cornfields, and they had no idea that it was hilly, and we had small farms and creeks and rivers and forests, and so it's one of my favorite areas to ride. Still.
Well, we're coming up on our bewitching hour. I thank you a lot, Peter. I'm looking forward to reading the book and appreciate the time you spent here with us. You too, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me, and enjoyed our conversation. It's nice to talk to all these people who know the same area and ride motorcycles, and even stopped in Iron River.
There you go.
I'll tell our friends you were there.
Well, we always end our meeting with the 4-way test of Rotary. We have a 5-way version. Keith, would you lead us tonight in the 5-way test?
Certainly would. I would enjoy that. Of the things we think, say, and do, 1, is it the truth?
The truth.
2, will it
be fair?
Is it fair?
Will it be fair to all concerned? I did that last week too. 3, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And 4, no, I messed it up again. I'm sorry. Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And
will it build goodwill?
Build goodwill and better friendships. That's the one I missed. Sorry. And the 5th one that we always add is, will it be fun?
Will it be fun?
Will it be fun? I like that.
Yeah.
And someday we'll write about that fifth one and we'll have a book just like Peter's. All
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Thanks again,
Thank you
Peter.
guys all so
Great
much.
talk.
Thanks. Great to talk to you. Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Next week, guys, is happy hour. I'm short speakers for September. I'll fill them in, but if you have some good suggestions, I'd appreciate it. Other than that, we're booked all the way to December.
Good.
So, yep. All right.
Okay.
Take care everybody till next week. Thanks again, Peter, and
Good
thanks
night.
for this
Thank you,
time.
All right.
guys. Okay.
Thanks very much.
Stop writing
Bye,
this.
Peter.
And Tom, stop down here next time you're on that loop.